Hi everyone in the mums and dads, renovators and decorators group. So here I am as my little computer starts to load and I can bring up my slides. Here I am for our Tuesday live. Okay, it looks good from my end. Oh, hi Belinda, hi Warren. Okay, all right, I love it when I can see you all roll in and I can start to read your comments. Beautiful. All right, so today, this is our August theme. We're going through a theme, or I'm going through a theme every month. We're just kind of reaching, or I'm answering some common questions that come across my desk when people are talking to me about perhaps becoming part of a renovation community or buying property or renovating for themselves or their family. So I just thought I'd break things down into topics, and I'll do a topic every month. So this month's theme, something that happens all the time of late, is people are worried about how their adult kids are going to make a start in the property market, and understandably so. So today I thought I'd discuss what type of deal is the most suitable for anyone starting in the property market for these kids. And a way of looking at that realistically is by addressing, first of all, what types of properties they should not do and what they shouldn't, and who they shouldn't listen to. So firstly, taking advice from friends or family who are not incredibly rich and successful themselves, particularly when it comes to property. When you're around the barbecue, everyone loves to throw in their 2 cents worth, and they love to tell you what they're thinking about the property market, where the latest hotspots are. And you have to ask yourself, like, where is their level of education coming from? Is it just a guess? Are they just reading bits and pieces in the newspaper? Are they listening to other people? Are they listening to a certain piece of advice, for example, from a property developer that might be tainted in viewpoint to get you to go and buy their properties in their areas? So never take advice from friends or family, except if they've been hugely successful in property themselves. And then that's when you get to ask all the types of questions in relation to how do they do it, and what's their cash flow like, and do they invest in properties for cash flow, or is it more about, you know, properties to add value to, like renovation properties, or do they just set and forget properties, all those kinds of things. You can get more into the conversation. They should also never buy without doing proper due diligence. And proper due diligence isn't just looking at a suburb and looking at a property and walking through it and saying, that's a nice house, that'll do, I can afford to pay for it. There's so much more research goes into buying an intelligent property, and a property that is going to perform over the long term. Making decisions based on fear of missing out. At the moment, so many people are making rush decisions, and honestly, I can understand it, because if you are too slow with your due diligence, if you haven't got that background knowledge behind you, and you see a property come up, particularly if it's at auction, and you just bid beyond what you can afford, or you just get swept away with the moment, and you make fast decisions based on your fear of missing out, thinking, oh, I've looked for weeks, this will do me. Then it's over, my search will be over and I can relax. You should never make decisions about that. I am seeing right now properties selling in areas around Australia based on this fear of missing out. Then in a couple of years, when things calm down again, people are going to be left holding properties that are going to be underperformers like they always have been. And the reason why they're going well at the moment, properties in certain areas, is because they're all that's left. So you don't want to be making decisions in areas that aren't really going to be significant when it comes to capital growth in the long term, just because you're fearing on missing out, or it's all you can afford. You don't want to be picking up the dregs. It's going to become very apparent in 5, 10, 15 or 20 years whether you've bought a good property or not. So do due diligence. Don't get swept up into it in all of this racing along, but do faster due diligence, like work hard, be ready to make a good decision when you see a good property. Listen to the media. All right, so the media are obviously in the business of selling stories. They're in the business of getting you to click on their stories on the internet, or to view their stories online on the TV stations, etc. It's all about the ratings. And so they will sensationalize the property market, whether it be wow, it's a big bubble, it's all about to bust, or, oh, we're in doom and gloom, or like whatever, you know, the media, they're in the business of selling stories. They're not necessarily in the business of helping you make good property decisions. Don't be too lazy to look into the government assistance. There is loads of assistance happening right now, and it's forever changing. My kids received a really good grant. They could get a 5% loan or 5% deposit loan. They didn't have to pay mortgage insurance. They got stamp duty gifted. Like these kinds of things are happening in the market. So don't be too lazy to look at it. Don't dismiss it as in you have to fill out a few forms and jump through a few hoops. Don't be too slack. Don't ignore the rules attached to the government assistance as well. If it's a first home buyers grant, then make sure you follow the rules. Like make sure you move into that property, that you are getting that grant and that you are going to behave yourself. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble further down the track when they find out about what you've done. Don't change your mind on the use of the property. I see this all the time, whereas people buy a property and they say, right, this is going to be the property that I'm going to live in. So they buy it in their own names. And the next minute they decide to renovate and flip that property or use it as an investment property and all that kind of stuff. Understand that if you can make your decisions right up front and speak to your accountant about structuring and putting that property in the right name right up front, you'll have less worry and you'll have less to untangle when you're down at the other end when it comes to perhaps selling that property for profit and trying to work out how to minimize your tax. So don't change your mind. Like grab your property, set your intent, work out what you want to do in your portfolio. Do you want a chunk of cash? Do you want to renovate and flip? Do you want to hold this property for the long term? Are you looking for good rental income? All those kinds of things. Make sure you make up your mind up front and don't change it. Buy a property that has no further potential is a big mistake. Like you're just leaving yourself short of being able to profit from a property and leapfrog from one property into the next if you buy something that has no further potential. Guys, sorry, I get distracted by all the comments. All right, so story. Lady from the gym came there one day and said, my daughter and my son-in-law have just bought this amazing property. It is all fully renovated. It is the most that they can afford. They'll be able to move into that property and they won't have to do a thing to it. And I think straight away, everybody's like, oh, that's lovely. And I'm thinking, no, that's really dumb. And the reason why I think it's dumb is that they've just handed the profit to somebody else who's gone to the trouble of renovating that property. Like they've just bought the property. They can't make improvements on it. They can't gain financially from that property other than just waiting for that property to grow. So I think that's a major mistake. The worst advice, again, buy the best you can afford. It's really interesting, these kids, and when they listen to other people around them, they will say, oh man, if you can borrow $700,000 with all of these government grants and all of the assistance, then go and buy the best you can afford for that amount of money. Like borrow right up to your eyeballs, guys. And that is the worst advice. There is no margin for error. There is no comeback if you decide you don't like that property when you're in there, or you're fighting with your neighbors, or it's not comfortable, it doesn't get the sun like you expected, or there's anything annoying about that property. Because if you have to sell that property, you're going to be selling it at around about the same price point because you're waiting for the growth, right? Natural growth. That's all you've got is the natural growth. If you're going to sell it, you're going to sell it at the same price point, minus all of those fees and charges you paid to get into that property, minus all of your real estate commissions, etc., to get out of that property, plus what you've got to go and find for the next deal that you go and buy. So don't buy right up to your eyeballs in debt the best property you can afford. Please don't. Pull it in underneath. Leave a buffer, a safety margin. Never spend as much as you can borrow. And don't, and people get lazy. So yeah, the worst advice is, oh, don't worry about all the government grants. There's lots of paperwork attached to that. Yes, there is, but please don't get lazy. They are available. Have a really good look in your state. I went through that last week. If you missed last week's videos, you can see them. They're pinned in the mums and dads, renovators and decorators group. So go back and have a listen to last week where I talk about those grants specifically. The worst advice. The market is on the fly right now. Just wait until the market drops. If you're ready to go now, go now. If you're ready, if you've got your deposit and you've got access to some of these grants, then go now. Who knows when the bottom of the market will be? Like, it's hard to, it's easy to identify when a market's going up and up and up and up. It's very hard to identify the exact peak because you don't know if it's going to go up further or it's going to pull back. It starts to be easy when you can identify the market going down. But then if you're trying to wait for the bottom of the market, that's also very hard to identify. So that top and that bottom is really, really hard to identify. If it's right for you to jump in, just jump in. Jump in at an affordable amount so that all you have to worry about is whether you can meet those mortgage repayments week by week, month by month, and then everything's cool. So long as you can meet those repayments, everything's cool. Property will always go up and down a little bit like that, but eventually, you win. So the worst advice, just buy and figure out what you are doing later. So like I said before, if it's your own residence, your principal place of residence versus an investment property, work that out beforehand and try not to change your mind midway. What are the two? I promised you I'd talk about the two worst properties to buy and why. Properties in big unit blocks that are just churned out. Nothing spectacular about them. Look at that picture there. They're just identical to each other. There is nothing different from one property on the 4th floor to another property on the 2nd floor. Same. So you will find that if you buy one of these properties and then you go to sell one of these properties, you're competing against everybody else in that unit block. And if somebody sells at less than they should, then they're going to set a new lower price for you. If somebody drops the amount that they're going to ask for rental income, then they're also setting a new lower rental income price for you. And if people have got choice, they'll play you, and there's a couple of those units for sale at the same time. They'll play you one unit against the other. And it's just, you just leave yourself really open to be up to your eyeballs in debt with no room to move, with no room of making your place significantly stand out from the rest. It is very, very difficult to stand out. And even if 10, 20 years down the track, you decided to renovate a property in a big building like that, understand that your real estate agent has a big task ahead of him, trying to draw attention to your unit, saying, well, you're asking more because you've done this, this, and this, and this to your unit. All people are going to do is jump on sites like RP Data, CoreLogic, and they're going to look at the stats and they're going to look at the numbers and the prices. And it's going to be very, very difficult for you to set a new high price for you to justify your renovation spend and pull up in profit. All right, so look, there's a reason why 80% of property investors end up only buying one property. They've got no room to move. They get stuck in a box. They get stuck in a mortgage. The banks love it. Seriously, they love you trapped. They love you trapped in a mortgage for 30 years. You are their dream client if you go and buy a property like this. You'll see developers try and sell you new units or new homes off the plan, all that kind of stuff. They don't mind, you're doing them a favor if you're buying their property. There might be multitudes of properties in an area just like this, all turned out together, and therefore you're diluting the property market prices because there's just so many coming onto the market at the same time. That's why 80% of people who get talked into via very schmick marketing from these property gurus buying properties like this, and then that's it. They just can't seem to move any further. There's just no margin to keep on going. Renovating units as well. This is the point that I want to make. A lot of people decide that they are going to buy a unit for their first property because it seems very containable, very controllable, and very doable. When people think about renovating units, they think, I've only got to deal with the inside. I actually don't have to think about a yard and a garage and driveways and fences and all those other expenses. So they'll head towards renovating units. But meet Gladys. This is Gladys. She's the grumpy old lady from floor number 5 who's going to complain about where you leave your skip bin, about the visitors parking being taken up, about the noise that you're creating. And she's also going to complain about the mess that's being left in the hallway and the foyer and your tradies coming and going. Honestly, renovating a unit can be a pain in the butt. It can be a pain in the butt. The only time I would ever look at renovating a unit is if that unit was really special, like it was in a boutique kind of environment, like, those unit blocks, you might see them locally to you, you'll recognize them, where there's maybe 4 to 6 units in the block and they're a little bit unique. They have like an Art Deco feel or something that's a little bit special. So they're the ones to target. Anything else I would just leave alone. And even if you target those units, understand you're going to have a Gladys. You're going to have a Gladys. All right, so the other thing is too, you can't just get in there and rip it apart and do whatever you like internally with those units. If you're removing any kinds of walls at all, you're going to need a certificate from a structural engineer. You're going to need to go before strata and ask permission to do things. You're going to need an acoustic engineer's report in relation to the flooring, what type of flooring you are installing, and you also have to adhere to fire safety regulations. So it's a different kettle of fish. It feels like, psychologically, feels like a great place to start, but units are actually not a great place to start. So while you're searching for something else that's different to what your friends and family and your peers expect of you, or even are advising you to do, let it go. Let it go, guys. Like, you do your own thing. You are your own person. Be free, let it go. Don't worry about what other people think. It's really important that you do that. I love Oprah. Her "What's your next right move?" If you end up in that box, if you're up to your eyeballs in debt, if you've got no way of increasing value beyond what the market is naturally doing itself, it's very, very difficult to make that next right move. And as parents, when we're talking to our kids about getting started in property, we need to say, guys, slow down. Think about the other kind of available opportunities to you to make more money. Think about the big game. This is the long game. This is not just about grabbing a place and moving in so that you feel pretty special right now. So most likely you and your peers, the circle of friends that your youngsters are around, your peers and even your kids' peers, most likely they're not on the same page. They don't have a long-term investor mindset. They're thinking about the here and the now and the very acceptable, which is just move into something that feels really beautiful and sit. That's what most people think is acceptable. That's fine, but you can do so much better than that. Your action also, the fact that if you're a youngster and you're getting started, or if your kids are getting started, their actions sometimes brings attention to other people's inaction. So it's very easy for people to enable each other and saying, hey, you don't have to worry about getting going in the property market because none of us can afford to start. So we'll just all rent. Like, everyone just enables everyone so it feels okay. Because behind the scenes, they're thinking, oh my goodness, Johnny's just got his finance sorted and he's just put a deposit on place and I'm just sitting here. What do I need to do? Like, should I be doing this as well? All of that kind of stuff. Like, understand the unsaid. Understand the unsaid. When people are communicating, hey, it's okay for you to do nothing so that they can feel comfortable doing nothing themselves, it's all unsaid, guys. People also like you to be how they've always known you, really comfortable. If you start to leap ahead in the property market and you leave them behind and you end up in a different financial position, people like everything feeling like, in their category, just the same, just comfortable. that kind of stuff. So, you know, just be careful, look after you, let it go. Don't worry about your peers, let it go, make your next right move. Guys, I'm holding another secret sauce to renovating training. It's coming up starting on this weekend, the 22nd of August, half an hour. I'll jump on lives. I'll answer your questions. There's VIP access available if you wanted to hang back and ask me more private questions afterwards, or have a more unique discussion about you, your property journey, where you're at, what your next right move might be for you or your family or your kids. Invite your kids along. It's free. It's free. So it'll go for around about 30 minutes live on Facebook in the Secret Sauce to Renovating Facebook group. So you have to actually register for the challenge on this link. go.renovateandrealestate.com.au/challenge. Last time I gave away, much to my team's eye rolling, $34,000 in scholarships last time I did it. So it's very, very interesting. I had 250 people register, and quite a few people dropped off after 1 or 2 days and then realized how cool it ended up in the end, and have connected with me and said, can you do another one? I missed out. Something came up, etc., etc. And even Dandenong, I think there were storms down there and people lost internet. All sorts of stuff was happening at that time during that week. So here we go again, backed by popular demand. $34,000 in scholarship giveaways is what I gave away last time. I'd love to see you on. Send that link out to friends and family if you think they might be interested. If you want to inspire your youngsters, the best way of doing that is by getting cracking yourself and engaging them in stuff where I am not their mum. You don't have to nag them. I'm getting quite a few young people join the community, which is so nice, because I'm not their mum. And in the end, we just want the best for these youngsters. We want them to get started, and that's what it's all about. So follow along in the Mums and Dads Renovators and Decorators group. There'll be the link there to the challenge so that you can jump on if you didn't write it down just then. Other than that, I'll see you starting Sunday night and then Monday night live for the Secret Sauce to Renovating training, backed by popular demand. Cheers, guys. Have a beautiful day. Bye.